to learn and to teach in the contemporary times is quite a difficult process. The world is moving so fast. In which we become passionately interested in the world. And how do we convey this passion to those who come to learn? And through that, how do we become better teachers? Because the world needs better teachers. And you can see all around us the kind of environment that we are building appears to be something that we should not be doing. And this is all designed by architects who were taught in schools of architecture. So the Teachers' Conclave will concentrate on learning together. It will not end with the session of 4 days. We hope to have a continuous contact with you, and we hope that from time to time we will meet again to exchange notes so that our camaraderie as people who are learning how to teach can keep growing stronger and stronger. We welcome you to this conclave.
A very good evening to all my dear teachers, architects, students, and friends. We are extremely delighted that we had an overwhelming response for today's event, and we can see that so many of you are registering with us, and we are excited about this live interaction that we have with architect R.Chhaya sir. So today's event is all about giving an idea about what the Teachers' Conclave is all about. What is this conclave that has been thought about? What is the idea behind it, and how it has been conceived, and what is thought? So before that, I would like to make a very quick presentation about RVS Chennai Padmavati School of Architecture. RVS Chennai Padmavati School of Architecture, we call ourselves the alternative school of architecture, mainly because we believe in an alternative methodology of learning and speaking. So as we go ahead in this alternative school of architecture, we focus our entire academic system on 5 pillars. The first pillar is called the live project, where students are involved in the construction of real-time projects. Can we go to the next slide? So in the live project, we focus a lot on students being involved in direct construction of projects, and they not only are involved as architects, but are involved as masons, electricians, and they become the product of the project. So this gives a complete different experience and also humbles the students in understanding the amount of effort that goes in creating. The second pillar of our architectural education is called the Vertical Studio. The Vertical Studio is a unique student exchange program that happens between colleges in India, where we have a lot of different collaborations with multiple colleges across the country. And this collaboration helps us to conduct studios of different nature across the country. The third pillar of our architectural education is something we call the Summer Winter School, where students focus on the allied fields of architecture, allied fields of design, and get an experience beyond architecture just as its built form. The fourth pillar is what we call the Finishing School. Finishing School focuses on bridging the gap between students and the architectural practice, to bridge the gap between education and architectural practice. And in Finishing School, we have a lot of different events that we conduct and coordinate for the students, right from interesting softwares to languages to personality development to understanding and interacting with architecture firms. The fifth pillar, and one of the recent additions to RVS's ideas and pillars, is the AAD. We have developed India's first Academy of Advanced Architecture and Design, a place where architecture students are now involved not only in the designing of any product or a building, but they're also involved in the manufacturing of such an ideology. So they are not only taught to design, but they're also taught to make. So we believe that this is a step into the future,
where students will be involved in understanding machines, understanding new softwares, and developing their skills with these new technologies. And this pillar, we believe, will also shape them to be future ready. And as we move ahead, we have a lot of other ideas and activities that we have planned in our RVS educational programs. One of the important things we do is called the Travel Theme Studios, a program that is exclusively designed for semester one students. So what happens in Travel Theme Studios is students undergo a travel. The last year we had a travel called Vaigai. So Vaigai Atru Padagai was something that we created exclusively for our students this year. And students travel and take a local tour across Chennai. And this program really helps them to understand the rural environment, culture, and all their academic practices are also evolved based on this Vaigai Atru Padagai. So Travel Team Studios becomes the essential component of academics. As we can see, students have traveled extensively, they interact with settlements, and they go ahead. Our dream project is a sustainable nature campus, a 16-acre land in which 5 acres is dedicated purely for architectural education and innovative construction. So we believe that in the sustainable nature campus, we will be able to showcase different kinds of architectural concepts, different kinds of architectural build forms, and created like a mini architecture village. So this is our dream project. And we are also very happy to announce that we have also segregated 2 acres of land in our campus only for agriculture. So we have initiated a concept called Vidai, which is agriculture plus architecture, and our students will be part of this entire program where students will learn the basics of farming and probably become somewhat a farmer in the process of learning. So this is a small brief about RVS Chennai Padmavati School of Architecture. And today we have with us architect Ar.Chhaya sir. Sir is somebody who needs no introduction at all, but I'm definitely going to read out a small brief about sir. Ar.Chhaya sir is an architect and academician who's been practicing in Ahmedabad since 1987 and has taught at the Faculty of Architecture in Sept University from 1987 to 2012, when he retired as the Dean of the faculty. He also taught earlier at the University of Nairobi and Institute of Environmental Design, Vallabh Vidyanagar, and has been an adjunct faculty at City School of Design, Bangalore. Professor Chhaya sir has been interested in the value of Indic thought on architecture, urbanism, and placemaking to contemporary practices. And Chhaya sir is also a very renowned academician who's been part of different studios, curating those studios, developing those ideologies across the country. And he's involved with students. He's been an inspiration to so many young architects who are now turned out to be teachers, practitioners, and have evolved into multiple fields. So that's a small brief about Chhaya sir. And today, this interaction, like I said earlier, has been planned to understand the importance of Teachers Conclave. So I request sir to say a few words about the Teachers Conclave. And today, we have a lot of questions about the conclave, which I think I'll be asking sir, and sir would be able to give us an idea about the entire program. So over to you, sir.
Yeah, I think the first thing, Revisi, that we should notice that it is called Teachers Conclave. It's not called Teachers Training Program, and which means that teachers who are also in many ways learners, they sit together and they reflect upon things that happen in the world of learning. So this Teachers Conclave is going to be a bunch of people who are engaged in teaching, who undergo or who sit together, discuss and think about what is it about learning processes? How do we develop our abilities to stimulate learning in the design studio? How do we create a passion for learning? That, of course, means that one has to be passionate about it oneself. One has to be passionate about learning in order to create a passion for learning. So this will be a workshop where it will be reflective. We will reflect upon how we teach, in what way do we orient ourselves, what are our abilities, what are the abilities which we would need to build up in order to become teachers who can stimulate learning. It will be a quite intense inquiry, which means that we'll be working throughout the day to think about this through a series of collaborative working sessions. So we will set ourselves certain projects through which we think about the teaching process. Um, and the hope is that this uh, participation will build up a background in this group of people, and they become a sort of a group that is continually talking to each other. So it's not that it ends with the end of the program, but hopefully we will become good friends and we will share our questions and our thoughts for a long time as people who are a kind of a community of action. Um, so the questions that we will look at is that one, the whole, all phenomena in the world are interconnected, and all our actions, therefore, will have an effect and will be affected by what happens in the world around. So how then do we create a space of thinking and learning in the studio, which takes into account the interconnectedness of everything? Which also means that we understand that material phenomena, gravity, or the hardness of materials, or the character of materials, are connected to our own material being, to our bodies. And how does this affect the way we make things? And all of these, rather than making a cerebral understanding of that, we will we will try to see how this can uh, create a new stance towards our reality, so that the person who participates in this reflection will go back a person with a very different attitude towards both learning and teaching. I think that is the, in a nutshell, what the program attempts to do.
So, as you say, sir, that every becoming a learner in this conclave, and we have named it a teachers conclave because it's not going to be a training program, where there is a set of rules. There's a lot of evolution that I feel will be happening in this entire process. So, in your opinion, how do you think we will work together? How is it possible? Because once this learner and the teacher, this kind of a combination in this conclave, this interaction, because that's quite something that we are all quite keen to know. At the same time, we have our own I would say certain apprehensions of how is that possible. I've come to a place and now I'm going to be a learner. What am I going to learn? So that is something that I'm myself quite dicey about. That
Yeah,
it's quite volatile in its nature, I feel.
yes. Revisi, actually, each of us, when we go into a new situation, we are learners. And when I meet all the people who are part of this conclave, I will also be a learner, just as they will be learning about each other. They will be learning about the new place in which they are. They will be learning about me. They will be learning about, and the thoughts then that we will pick up. We will pick up questions, but not in the form of a question which has to be answered, but a line of inquiry. We will create lines of inquiry by which our whole sense of how we deal with our world modifies somewhat. That's not in the way of a kind of propaganda of trying to make you think in a certain way, but as we converse, as we talk to each other, as we create a dialogue, there will be automatically a certain atmosphere of holding some things together. And that creates the uh, uh, learning stance, and that also then by transfer will become the teaching stance. So we will take up specific, not so specific at times, we'll take up questions which will be put to us which I will put to the rest of the group in a way in which it leads to opening up a certain area of thought and which leads to a certain uh, uh, observation of our own psychological uh, orientation by which we start looking at the world somewhat differently. More than that, I think it is in the process itself that many things will develop.
When we spoke about something like this and we floated it out to so many teachers and architects and also students, one of the very important question that many people asked us was, what is the role of a teacher in current scenario of this field in architecture? How important is this role? Because one of the things that came across to us as a question was, a few years back, a teacher was not one important profession where an architect was turning his eyes to. But now, teacher and being a teacher is as important as any other profession in the architecture industry. So, what do you think, sir, is the role of a teacher in the society in building it up? Because that is something, everyone has, they also wanted to ask you, what do you think a teacher should have, or what do you think is the role of a teacher in the current society?
Most importantly, the teacher is like a mirror to society. We talked about reflection. There are things happening, so many things happening. Some which are uh, making things better, but some which may be harmful to people or to the environment and so on. And I think the teacher's primary role is to say, listen, this is what I can see. What would you like to do with that? And for that, the teacher will have to become open and he will have to become somebody who is curious and thoughtful and sensitive to what is going on. And the teacher's role, I think, is to show that the basic sensitivity is augmented by the building up of skills and is augmented by reference to knowledge, but the basic skills or the basic sensitivity is something that develops in each person differently. And the teacher, by showing that mirror, is able to say, this is who, do you think you are this? Would you like to look at that? Because you can't look at yourself otherwise. And the teacher is able to reflect both what society is, but also sympathetically, with great love, reflect what the student is. And the student is able to see himself or herself in that mirror which the teacher is able to show. And that, I think, requires a great deal of uh, ability to openly and without any kind of agenda reflect.
Oh, nice, sir. Actually, it's something that is very, very thoughtful and very thought-provoking as well. To become a mirror. And so, one of the questions that came to us, actually, it's quite a continuity of this mirror, is like, do I have, or what is the qualification? So, what is the, who should I be to be part of this teachers conclave? When we wrote it out, what is the minimum qualification required? What is the character that I should have? And what is the expectations that is expected out of me? And so, it is like to understand what should I need to be part of this conclave, or something that was put forward to us from a lot of different aspirants.
Yeah, I think that's a very important question. Really speaking, somebody who is greatly interested in everything that's going on and is able to sit down calmly and see that without starting to react. So that person we can say there is a passionate current of energy, which is an energy to understand, not an energy to go and meddle in things or go and reject things or accept them, but it is really an energy to take it in and put it in context. And that is, I consider passion not to be like sentiment. Passion is not the same as sentiment. Passion is a kind of energy which takes in the world and flows out to the world. And that's the kind of person. Now, such a person, and there may be so many of them all over, uh, even those who are not teachers or those who are not architects, but because we are talking about architecture, there will also be a certain ability to convey ideas in drawing, in making things, in conceptualizing things. It will be someone who has some sense of how to put together how to show relationship between disparate things. And that is a both an ability which you develop over a period of time, and you may come with a basic ability there, and hopefully during our conversations that ability will move forward. But you will also need to have a certain degree of skill, because unless you are able to put down your thoughts, your feelings in some kind of verbal or non-verbal form, but especially the non-verbal form, especially spatial, formal, material sense, only then you can become someone who is able to carry the students with you. So because this group, we are able to only include a small number, we will have to be careful that there is passion, there is an ability to conceptualize, there is an ability to communicate, and there is an ability of basic skill.
Sure, sir. I think that answers a lot of the questions.
Many people ask
About the entire conflict. Now, another generic question that came to us was, it was more like a question that was directed to you. Is education or the world in itself has changed so fast? The pace of growth and development has been so fast. So, what do you think is something that our current educational system lacks, or what do you think is something that the educational system should change? For all these young teachers who listen, something that you think is lacking in the current methodology or in the current way of education system?
Hmm. This is actually something which will require a great long uh, answer. However, let's try to pick out a few important things. One is in the learning process, and I'm specifically not using the word education. I'm calling it the learning process. In the learning process, what you go through is more important than the result that you produce. Of course, the result is always important in practical life, but in the learning process, too much of a concentration on achieving results creates a constriction of thought process and a constriction of learning space, that you only can go through a certain narrow passage towards learning. Whereas learning actually happens when space is opened up. And that can only open up when we are not obsessed with the result. Result will certainly come, but we are less obsessed with the result. And much of today's emphasis is on what are the measurable results. And there, I think there has to be a little bit of a understanding that the measurable result is the second thing we look at. The first thing we look at is what is the richness of learning that's happening. So that's one. The second thing is that learning happens between the world and somebody who wants to learn about the world. Between that someone who wants to learn about the world and other people. And therefore, not the abstracted rules, but the actual experienced interactions become the important things in a learning process. And therefore, the teacher is not a kind of quality control head of a bunch of
Yeah.
people who are becoming architects. The teacher is really interested in what is happening to all of. So there is a constant flow of learning happening both ways, and that is what I think we have to bring into the studio and the classroom without even talking about any of the systemic changes that might help. Systemic changes is beyond the singular teacher. But the atmosphere of the classroom, the atmosphere of the studio is definitely within the scope of the teacher herself.
Nice, sir. Actually, gives a very interesting thought of what we can think about. Another thing that came to us as we were opening up for the conclave is that what is the difference between architectural practice and architectural education? Because there seems to be a large gap. And one of my friends was saying that the architectural education itself or teaching is not looked at as practice. The kind of the space that I gave, the kind of approach that I have, it's not looked at as a form of art, was something that someone put forward to me in a
Mm,
conversation, that architectural education or teaching is also a form of art. You need to
mm.
look at it that way. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think a good idea would be to look at Paul Klee's book, The Thinking Eye. It's a 2-volume. Those were actually his notes in the
Okay.
classroom at the Bauhaus.
Oh.
How he used to teach, lesson by lesson by lesson, it is there. And at the same time, he is making paintings based on what he's discussing in the class. And those paintings have been accepted throughout the art world as masterpieces of great art. So these are what happens in the studio is that we modify some of the conditions that happen in the world, but we are dealing with the same subject. We are dealing with the same subject without the pressure that is there when an actual project is being done. So the practice is the stage on which things are being done. The classroom, the studio, is the place where they are being imagined. And the two are complementary. They are not, and again, that image of the mirror comes. Practice is a mirror to teaching. Teaching is a mirror to practice. And the two cannot be separated out.
There's always this conversation, between architectural
And it's important for us to also look at teaching as, like you said, this thinking eye. I think this book that all of us should definitely go through because I've never heard of it. But if we can look at teaching also as an artistic platform, I think we will be very passionate
and looking beyond it. And we have a few more questions.
came to us during this entire conversation. So one of the questions is what I learned in this 5-day program in this teacher's culture and implementing it in my career for the next few months. How effective will that be in the consistent time? Because my learnings, because usually there's a faculty development program that happens, which is very essential in terms of skill development. It happens for a few days. So how am I going to take this forward? Because when we used conclave, we told them that it is not going to be stopped with
October 6th. It's just 5 days where we are starting this program, but it is not going to stop there. So how do you think these interactions will continue, and what is
your expectations, in these interactions, let's say for the next few months, as they travel with the learnings of this content?
So first of all, about that 4 days, you know, suppose you go to, let's say you go to Greece as a tourist for 4 days, and you are completely immersed in that environment. Maybe you make some friends there and you come back. What have you learned? What you have learned, I think, is that you have got changed by that experience. And then you have got contacts with whom you can continue that experience. And I think we should look at every interaction, such as the Teachers Conclave, as something where we will meet a group of people whom we have not met before. We will talk about things which will do something to us. We will go away from that experience somehow changed, and we will have made friends. And the group of people with whom we spent those 4 days become a sounding board for what we do in the future. And you will remember, for example, that somebody was very good at such and such, or the other guy, he brought references from so and so. And so internally, we will have a lot of sounding boards to each other. And through the process of email and maybe telephone, we will be able to converse with each other even after the conclave is over. That's one. Hopefully, we will become friendly enough that we will want to meet again. And at some point in time, somewhere, we will gather together, as many of us as possible, and again share and continue the conversation. And conversations, remember, do not end. They go on in your mind long after they are over. And then we can start them again. Revisi, when I meet you, now I don't have to think about what will I say to him, because there is a conversation which has been developing over a period of time. And that conversation automatically starts again. And I think this is the way in which the spirit of this conclave should be. Revisi, if you don't mind, there is one question by Prithvi Mahadevan. It's a question which I think we should deal with. One of my teachers has told me that a teacher is like a ladder. It is used to step up, but the ladder never moves. What are your thoughts on that? Yes, the ladder doesn't move.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, but the ladder has built a certain stability into itself. It's been made by someone also. That ladder was never a ladder. It became a ladder. And in order to become a ladder, it had to have a certain strength, a certain structural stability, and so on. But there is something further. Krishnamurti used to say that let's say you come across a signboard which says Bombay, and that's the route to Bombay. and you want to go to Bombay. So you actually start walking in that direction. You don't sit down and start praying to that thing. Yeah. And you don't carry that ladder throughout your life with you. You only have learned how to climb. And I think this is how the relationship between one who demonstrates or points out a potentiality and the one who builds up her own abilities on the basis of that potentiality, this is the relationship.
Yes, sir. I think question has been answered about the teacher being a very important ladder in everyone's life. So some of the other questions we're going to be answering is that about the conclave, like you said, it's going to extend for 4 days, and the 5th day, October 6th, is somewhere where we'll be winding up the entire session. So throughout this program, we have also created a platform where certain queries from knowledge.
Your voice is breaking.
Am I audible, sir?
Now better. Yes.
1 minute. Yeah, okay. So am I audible now, sir? Okay, so actually the total idea behind the conclave has been to encourage teachers to be thinking innovatively and to create new ideas overall. So in this conclave, we told them how the schedule is being planned in a way that it is going to be different. It is going to extend beyond these 5 days. We also informed them how the teachers and learners are going to come together. And like we said, there is also a certain scale of skills that is expected from all these teachers. The first thing is them to be quite intrigued with the entire process of teaching. So you've seen teachers for quite a long time. So how do you see this transformation? The digital world has taken over in multiple ways. There are so many new technologies that come. The transformation is across all fields, from medicine to law to engineering, everywhere. Technology has a huge role to play. So how do you see this role of technology when a teacher is developing? Because teaching is one space where we feel the importance of technology needs to be taught as they are going to be facing the technology in their practice or in their career. But the involvement of technology in teaching is quite less. Is what many youngsters, many young students feel. So what is your thoughts on this, technology in teaching?
Technology is a tool, and with the new tool, new forms of expression can develop. If we look at the field of music, for example, somewhere in the 1960s, somebody invented something called the Moog synthesizer, and electronic music. You could produce all kinds of sounds through that electronic instrument. And that didn't destroy music, it created a new form. And if you listen to, say, someone like Terry Riley or John Cage, there is a new form of music that is arising there. And in the same way, with the new tools in architecture, certainly there will be new ways of visualizing things, new ways of making things, new ways of creating coordinations between things, new ways of conceptualizing things, perhaps even. But that doesn't mean that the primary purpose of architecture, which is to make our stay on this earth not destructive and completely accepting all the conditions and still being part of this life or all life forms, this will still remain So again, Paul Klee said at one point, art is that which makes the invisible visible. And the work of architecture often is able to remind us of the fact that, wow, there is sunlight, or wow, there is a breeze. It is able to remind us that there are trees swaying in the breeze outside. And with that, architecture does something. The tools, with new tools, we'll make new forms perhaps, but the basic intention of architecture will, I think, still be to make man at home in the world.
Yes, sir. So I think it's very evident, the kind of changes that go through technology, because when we see even in any institution for that matter, there is always the young faculties who bring in a lot of new softwares and they try to teach a lot of rendering, while the senior faculties have a different role to bring it together. And this, this conversation or between seniors and juniors in teaching itself is quite interesting. And there is always this thirst, among passionate teachers to learn. So one other thing, that I wanted to ask you personally is, we've seen many architects moving on into different portfolios of work, not just built form. They're moving into different portfolios of work, and that can be seen evident in the recent times. How do you think architectural education or the learning process is able to prepare them for this kind of a career, sir? Because most of the students are focused towards, built form in their learning curve. So how is it that architectural education can focus itself on the allied fields, or there are different fields like design that's coming up? What do you think can be something that, as a teacher, somebody should definitely try to open out to?
So first of all, architectural education reminds you that you have innate capacities. It is able to stimulate you to look with more care. It is able to create a sensitivity to various things which are physical things. And that, I think, that openness that creates, first of all, an openness, a curiosity, an absorptive capacity, and a capacity to put things in some kind of relation. And I think that can be helpful in any field. It's not just in architecture. So that's one. The second thing, and I think this is equally important, we learn not to be afraid of making mistakes. Every other field, you're supposed to get the answer right. Only then you pass the exam. They give you an equation and they give you a problem. You solve that problem and you pass. But here, there's nothing which you can say, oh yeah, you passed. This is the equation, you used it correctly, there you go. You are constantly risking the possibility that the first try will be inadequate, will be somewhat clumsy. And that ability to psychologically withstand the possibility that I might fail is something that is built into a creative learning process. And if that is happening, then I think the architect is able to be in any field somebody who can, go out and try things. Because only if you try things, you might come out with something which was not done before. And I think that these two things, one is the ability to sensitize oneself without getting swamped. And the second is the ability to withstand and have the patience to continually try for a longer period of time. These two things are very, very fundamental to architectural education, and I think that can give a lot of scope for taking up all kinds of other fields, uh, all kinds, not just architecture.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. And now I think we are going to be concluding the session in some time. So I'm going to be asking one of the last questions that we have been asking ourselves when it comes to teaching. So every time there is a result or there is a product that comes out of every semester, and when the semester product comes out, we evaluate it. Based on the certain criterias, based on the skills. But we see that what the outcome of every studio will keep changing and the student slowly evolves. So this kind of an evaluation process, what is your opinion about, or what do you think will be the right way to evaluate a student's work in a semester?
Evaluation is the last step. But before that, there is a discussion about that work. The student presents the work, and unfortunately, we use the word jury. Jury is a group of people who find out whether you are guilty or not. So it is a bad word to use. So there is a group of people. Often, this group of people actually acts like a jury. They cross-examine you. They tell you, oh, that thing, why didn't you do that? And here you have failed, and that toilet is not working, or something like that. And I think the discussion, there are more important aspects to that discussion. That discussion is about what is this person trying to do, and to what extent has that person developed the patience to work on it, the abilities that are required to execute it or to bring it to a level of presentable form. So has that person built up a conceptual ability? Has that person built up a ability to skillfully put it together? And these are questions not so much of absolute judgment, but they are questions of relative scale. And I think that the evaluation procedure should help the person to understand what more that person needs to do, rather than to say that this is what is lacking. And I think the evaluation process should be as simple, because remember, we are all human beings. We teachers are human beings, well, although often we think we aren't. Sometimes we think we are gods. We are human beings. And as human beings, our judgments are never 100% true. So we must leave a little room for doubt in our own minds. And with that, I think the evaluation process becomes a human process rather than a bureaucratic process.
Thank you, sir. Actually, that's very inspiring to listen to that. About the thought that sometimes we think that we are gods and we are not. So it was very an interesting dimension to it. We've got one question from the audience. We encourage the participants to also share your questions in the Q&A. The question that we have received is, what should be the commitment for the architectural teaching profession? I'm just going to repeat it. What should be the commitment for the architectural teaching profession?
Commitment sounds like being sent to prison. He was committed to prison for 3 years, like that. No. There is a outgoing energy which says, hey, I would like to take part in this. And that is what makes you a good architect and a good teacher. That means, how do we nurture this energy in ourselves? How do we keep ourselves alive? How do we keep our eyes shining and interested? And that is what is, and then question of commitment is, oh yeah, of course, as long as I'm, I'm alive, I'll be interested. And that commitment is full, wholehearted. There is no half measure. But that doesn't mean that you don't have other aspects of life. You also like to do other things. Maybe you like to listen to music. Maybe you talk to the students also about music. Maybe you like to read. Maybe you also talk to the students about reading. And there are so many ways in which that human contact between somebody who has walked a little distance and somebody who's just beginning on the path, that distance is reduced by this kind of conversation. And that is the commitment of the teacher, that which says, hey, listen, I've got a torch in this dark forest. I'll show you. We can use the torch together. Do you want me to point it this way or that way? But I'll point it this way and I'll show you this, but maybe you want to point it the other way. And through that, a conversation goes on.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I think it was very, it started off quite interestingly, and I think the question has been answered. We are now open to questions from the participants. If they have any questions, you can kindly put it forward to us. Um, so we have a few more minutes, and we'll take a few questions. Parallelly, I think we will also show the website through which the registration process is going to happen. I would like Chhaya sir to explain the reason. Okay, we've received a question. 1 minute. By the advance of accreditation authorities, how does a teacher still be motivated to teach? I'm just going to repeat it again. By the advance of accreditation authorities, how does a teacher still be motivated to teach?
There are traffic rules. And still we are motivated to go to another place. We follow the rules at times, most of the time. Sometimes we don't. And the accreditation process is at best a kind of primary process and not much to be in your teaching, your attention. If you teach well, then the accreditation has no way in which they do not recognize you. And so forget about the accreditation process. Just be fully, passionately interested in what's happening. And there, it's just like saying, I want to go to Mahabalipuram, irrespective of whatever. I mean, there's so much traffic and there are policemen all the way and they'll ask for this and they'll ask for that. And I'll have to drive on the left. And, the red light will come and then I'll have to stop, and all those things will be there. And still, I want to go and see, the descent of the Ganges at Mahabalipuram. So I'll go. That's how it is.
Thank you, sir. I think it was a fantastic, analogy, and I think it makes a lot of sense. I think if we have a certain goal in mind and we would like to travel to the goal, there's always some kind of hurdles that we see. So another question that I got personally is, how do I participate in the teachers conclave? So we're going to be showing the process, and sir, if you could explain the questions that we have framed, why we want to get certain inquiries from the participants. I will just share our college website and explain how to register in the process, and you can share the questions that has been put forward, sir. So, dear friends, as you can see in the screen, this is our website, www.rvschennai.edu.in. And in the home page, there is this option till 2022, where you have to click to register. And that will take you to another page, which is a page that has been dedicated for the Teachers Conclave. This page gives a basic idea about the entire program. I would like to mention that earlier the registration fees for the entire program was mentioned as 5,000 rupees. Now we have made the workshop fees as 3,000 rupees, excluding food. As the sessions are planned in a very intriguing manner, we want to leave it a little open. So there will be options for food in the space in our Center for Design and Innovation where the workshop is going to happen. So people can have it from here from our canteen. So the workshop fees has been reduced to 3,000 to encourage participants to be part of the process. And we have added a small column here which says we would like to get to know you. There are certain basic details, which is your contact number and where you're from. While there are three questions that have been put forward, and I would like to ask Chhaya sir to explain these three questions. The first one is says your interests and passion, reasons why you wish to attend the conclave. That's the second question. And the third question is
Memorable learning experiences.
yeah, your memorable learning experience that you've had as a student, as a teacher. So if you can just give a brief of why we are looking at these questions, sir.
So first of all, as you can see, it's titled Getting to Know You. That means it's not a kind of assessment of you, who you are, but whoever joins and whoever wishes to join, we would like to get to know you a little better. How do we get to know you? So first of all, I think there can be, you can put down in short, what are your interests and passions? Somebody might be interested in gardening, for example, or somebody might be interested in designing clothes, or somebody might be interested in music, or somebody might be interested in theater, and passionately every weekend follows theater or dance or something like that. Why is it so important to you? What are your interests and your passions? So that's the first question in a short paragraph, if you can tell. The second is reasons why you wish to attend the conclave. Then there is, really speaking, that's the core question of getting to know you. Because only if I understand what you wish to gain from the conclave, or why you wish to attend, so we need to know that. And there is not, we are not hoping for very sort of learned essays on that. We are really hoping for a frank and very, very open discussion about your wanting to attend the conclave. And the third thing is, this is a very important thing. Every one of us has had some learning experience which was deep, profound, and a little description of that will sort of guide us and will also help us to get to know you better. So it could be only one learning experience, which was, or it could be more, but possibly something that really deeply touched you. If you can describe that, then we will be able to get to know you better. So that these are the three questions. And then if you have a portfolio of your work, either in teaching or in practice or both, it might be nice to have a small portfolio. That will be an additional help for us to get to know you. So these are the kind of things that we would like you to put down when you apply.
Yeah, thank you, sir. We have two questions now. Then we'll get back to the theme of the entire conclave. One question is from Yamini Rangarajan. Hi, sir. Thank you for such an insightful speech. My question would be, can you please share one unforgettable, delightful learning experience from a student or a studio, and one regretful experience from all your years of teaching?
Well, one delightful experience I can straight away remember. I used to think that I cannot paint. And I still think that I can't paint. But one of my students, she came and she said that today we are all going to paint. So I said that I don't know how to paint. There's nothing doing. We are all going to paint. The only condition is it has to be a terrible work. It has to be a bad painting. So then that gave me some little bit of confidence. And we all started making and trying to make as bad a painting as possible. It didn't turn out to be bad. It was the only good painting that I've ever made. So that is a delightful learning experience where she took away the fear about knowing I won't be able to do it. Yeah, so that fear was taken away. So, and a sad learning experience, those are many. You've got teachers who are constantly telling you you are useless, you are not working, you are doing this, you are, I look at you, how will you ever succeed in life? You know, that kind of thing. Those learning experiences, they are not learning experiences at all, but they leave you so shaken and so that you withdraw into your own shell. And this is something which is uh, we as teachers really have to see how we prevent ourselves, because it's very natural to tell something like that to a student. It's very not natural, but it is very easy. And if we can stop that kind of reactive uh, activity, then our learning process will be enjoyable. So those are two experiences that I've shared. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. We have another two more questions. One question is, many revisions in the syllabus are going on. How does the teacher find the connect the students with practical costs of their large scale designs? I'm not able to get that. Many revisions in the syllabus are going on. How does the teacher find the connect? How does the teacher find to connect the students with practical costs of their large scale designs?
Ah, well, I think first of all, cost is related to what? Cost is related to how much, what kind of material and how much of it you use, and how much effort goes into making it, either through machines or through handwork. What is the amount of labor that goes into it? And rather than talk about costs, because those keep on changing. You know, when I started my practice, brick was 300 rupees for 1,000 bricks. Today it is 9 rupees each. So it's no point talking about cost as such. But how do you, when you make a brick, you're using up some topsoil, then you're using fire, you're using energy, and then you're going to use labor to make it. What is what are you extracting? And then what are the different ways in which the same task could be done? And I think the teacher can give a sense of perspective into the 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 kind of material and the kind of labor and the potentialities for thinking about it. So that is how I would look at it.
Nice, sir. Very straightforward, and I think something that recently when I was interacting with a very young child, he was like, when I was in school there were 10 planets, or I think 9 planets, and now I think the number of planets are reducing for every 10 years. Now I think Pluto is not a planet anymore. So I think it's very similar to what you said about the cost. It's constantly changing. So we have another anonymous question which says, can the conclave be made available online? That's
It's very difficult. Very difficult because it is this contact and the conversation that is of importance. But I think, Riviji, what we may be able to do is to record some of the conversation and make them maybe get them transcribed, and also the audio recording become available to others afterwards. But as a ongoing process, it's difficult to make it online.
Yeah, I think to answer to what sir, the question is, the reason the teachers conclave idea was discussed consistently is itself because we've been doing online discussions for a long time, and I think education has taken an online and offline hybrid methodology. There is certain thing that is lacking, while we move into an online platform. And when I speak with sir on Zoom, and when we speak within his office, I think the conversations are very vibrant, the environment are the same. So I think it will be really difficult for us. I think many participants have this idea, but like sir said, we will definitely see if some of the lectures can be done, but the interactions would be difficult because our idea of the conclave is also after these 5 days, there will be interactions with the group online. And I forgot to mention it last time while I was mentioning. We will be selecting around 25 teachers from the people who are registering, so that we can have that number. So the number of people will be participating in this conclave will be 25 teachers maximum. So that is something that I wanted to mention. And before I get another question, I would like to ask sir to just speak about the theme of this teachers conclave, which you can we'll be sharing the name of this conclave. The conclave is named as Tilt 22. Tilt standing for the inquisitive teacher and learner, a conclave to build comradeship in teaching. So I think this name also came out after a lot of discussions and how to actually bring about the theme. So the theme was named as the inquisitive teacher and learner, and I request sir to just throw some light onto the theme and to that tagline that says a conclave to build comradeship in teaching. What do you say?
Yeah. I think in every field of life, there are some people who are inquisitive about what's going on, and they can help others to become aware of possible problems that are looming. And so, therefore, the inquisitive teacher is this somewhat nosy person who is probing into here and there, but also somebody who is calmly looking at what's going on, but is that person's eyes are lit up with curiosity, with inquisitiveness. And that kind of a person is automatically a learner. And a good learner is automatically a teacher. You must have seen this when children are playing, that the children who are really going and finding out things, they become the teachers of the other children. And this happens with us as well. So the inquisitive teacher and learner is somebody who is alive with inquisitiveness. And the second line, build comradeship, because we are not isolated creatures who are working in some vague silos, but we are comrades in this whole process of building up a society in which we gradually make better and better architecture. And so this will be a comradeship in teaching, where hopefully we'll continue to talk to each other for a long time. That's how the title comes, or the theme comes.
Yeah, thank you, sir. I think that's about the theme of the workshop. We would be the workshop is planned from October 2nd to 6th. So the last day will just be a session where we wind up and we conclude. So okay, we have a Q&A again. What are the timings? Mr. Vaidyanathan, Architect Vaidyanathan has asked, what are the timings of this workshop during this 4 days?
We'll start early in the morning, most probably at about 9 o'clock in the morning, and we'll go until about 7, at least. And then there will be homework. So that we get to know what happens to our students when we are teaching them.
I think all of us will be becoming students and learners in this environment. I think we've cleared. We request you. Yes, sir.
No, I will also be up for all that time. So, except that I won't have homework, perhaps. I don't know. I will probably have homework because after the day's discussions, I'll have to do homework for next day. So there it is. All of us will be in the same boat.
Definitely, sir. And we had 250 plus registrations for this today's webinar and today's discussion alone. So, but the amount of people that we are looking forward who will be selected or who will be part of the conclave will be 25. So, we request all teachers to take it forward and kindly register at the earliest so that we can start the process. There's another question. Is it required for us to stay there or can travel from home? Actually, the event is planned in the Center for Design and Innovation at Pural. So this does not have an accommodation facility right here in our office. So the workshop is planned in our office, and so if anybody needs accommodation, we can definitely help them out in finding accommodation somewhere nearby. Because we have many registrations for today's event also from across India. We've got registrations from all over the country, to be honest. So if anybody needs any facilities or any help like that, we will be willing to help them out in the logistics. But here, so we have planned the workshop so that it is not something where we're all be staying together. It is, we can all travel from your homes from morning to evening. It can go on. So the reason why we want to have a workshop like that without any time restrictions is this is going to be a consistent interaction. Like sir said, I think there will be homework and you can stay back late, you can interact. We wanted to be as much conversations and dialogues as possible. So that's about the timing and the travel. For our friends who are going to be coming from cities other than Chennai, you can contact us in the number available in the website in that page. We will guide you and we will help you find nearby accommodation and we can help you with the logistics. So that should not be a problem. So I think if there are any more questions, otherwise we'll be winding up the session. So I think we will call it a day, sir. And like I mentioned, a gentle reminder for all participants and teachers to register at the earliest. We will send this, you can register through our website. We will also be sending this link. So kindly register at the earliest. And we are looking forward to meeting all of you here in Chennai. And sir, we're looking forward to meet you here in Chennai at the earliest. And we're looking forward for a really fun learning experience for 5 days. So to remind all of you, all of my friends and colleagues, thank you again for joining with us today in this webinar. I hope that it was, useful and many of your questions were answered. Please write to us and we'll be willing to take things forward and let's have a great weekend. Today's a Saturday. So thank you, sir, once again for accepting this invitation. And I'm looking forward for the Teachers Conclave, like all the other people who've registered for the webinar are looking forward to. Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot.